Most people book an Airbnb for comfort, convenience, and maybe a little adventure. You expect clean sheets, a quiet night, and the safety of being in someone else's home. But sometimes, behind the pretty photos and glowing reviews, there are shadows that no listing can warn you about. Strange noises from locked rooms, hidden cameras staring back, or even a host who refuses to leave. These aren't just spooky stories, they really happened, and they prove that not every stay ends with sweet memories. Tonight, we're diving into 5 true Airbnb horror stories you won't forget. I booked an Airbnb in Portland for a 3-night work trip. The place looked charming online, a renovated craftsman-style house, shared with other guests, but with private rooms and a nice desk for late hours. When I arrived, everything seemed normal. The host greeted me quickly, handed me the keys, and mentioned one small thing: "Oh, that door at the end of the hallway stays locked, it's just storage." At first, I didn't think twice. Old houses always have storage spaces. But that first night, while I was finishing emails around midnight, I heard something faint. A soft cough. It came from behind the locked door. I froze for a moment, then brushed it off. Maybe pipes, maybe one of the other guests. The second night was different. I came back late and noticed something strange: scuff marks on the baseboard, right under the storage door. Almost like someone's shoe had scraped it. That night, just as I turned off my lamp, I heard a shuffle. Slow, dragging steps. Then a sound that made my stomach twist, a muffled breath. Someone was definitely behind that door. I lay in bed, heart racing, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Then I saw it. A thin sliver of light appeared at the bottom of the door, like someone had moved closer with a flashlight. I didn't sleep much after that. By the third night, I was on edge. Every creak of the house made me jump. Around 2 a.m., I heard the sound again: shuffling, breathing. Then, the faint click of a lock. The door creaked open. I sat upright in bed, straining to listen. Footsteps, slow and heavy, crossed the hallway. They stopped right outside my bedroom. I held my breath, terrified that the handle would turn. But after what felt like forever, the steps retreated, and the door to the storage room clicked shut again. At sunrise, I packed my bags. When I confronted the host, he just laughed nervously. "Oh, it's probably maintenance. Sometimes they come by at night." The excuse made no sense, and I left immediately. Later, I filed a report with the rental platform. Weeks afterward, I got a call from a Portland detective. They had searched the house. Inside that storage room was a cot, a half-empty water bottle, and cough drop wrappers. Someone had been secretly living in there while guests stayed in the house. I'll never forget the feeling of lying awake, knowing that the thin wall between me and that door wasn't enough to keep me safe. It was supposed to be the perfect trip. I had just started dating my girlfriend, and we booked a sleek high-rise condo in Miami for our first real vacation together. The listing had glowing reviews: ocean view, rooftop pool, spotless rooms. When we arrived, it looked exactly like the photos. Everything felt perfect. But the first night, while unpacking, I noticed something odd. There was a smoke detector directly above the bed. No big deal, except when a storm knocked the power out later, every light in the condo went dark, except for one tiny red glow on that detector. It bothered me enough that I stood on a chair to check it. The plastic looked newer than the other detectors, and when I angled my phone flashlight, I saw something chilling: a tiny drilled hole, right where the LED was. Trying to play it cool for my girlfriend, I told her I just wanted to check the Wi-Fi. I opened the available networks on my phone. Right there, mixed with random neighbor connections, was one labeled Chem Bedroom Miami. My stomach dropped. I carefully unscrewed the device. It wasn't a smoke detector at all. Inside was a tiny black lens and a micro SD slot. My girlfriend's face went pale as I held it in my hand. We decided to call the host right away. When he answered, his voice was strangely calm. "Oh, that? Probably just a Wi-Fi extender. Don't worry about it." He then insisted he could come over in 20 minutes to fix the problem. That's when alarm bells really rang. Midnight. A stranger, with keys, offering to come over. We locked the door, packed our essentials, and drove to a hotel. The next morning, we reported everything to the rental platform. They didn't seem shocked, apparently. Hidden cameras aren't as rare as you'd hope. But things escalated quickly. The Miami police got involved, and when they checked the SD card, they found weeks of footage, different couples, families, even children. All recorded without their knowledge. The host's listing was suspended, but that didn't erase the feeling of violation. Even months later, my girlfriend and I struggled to stay in rentals again. Hotels suddenly felt safer, even with their flaws. The worst part? Knowing that for every camera discovered, there are probably others still hidden, still recording. Now, every time I walk into a rental, I check the mirrors, the detectors, even the outlets. Because when someone is watching you sleep, you don't realize the horror until it's too late. My girlfriend and I booked a cozy little bungalow in Asheville for a fall getaway. The listing made it sound like the perfect escape: rustic charm, a fireplace, and a quiet wooded yard. The host, a man named Luke, seemed friendly enough in his messages. He even left a handwritten note on the table: "Welcome, make yourselves at home." But that first night, around 9 p.m., we heard the front door open. Luke walked in, holding a clipboard. He smiled, saying he was just checking the furnace readings. At first, we didn't think much of it. Maybe the house was older, maybe maintenance was normal. But he stayed too long, asking us questions, standing a little too close. When he finally left, my girlfriend whispered, "That was weird." The second night, things escalated. At exactly 12:43 a.m., the door creaked open again. This time, we were in bed. I grabbed my phone and peeked through the cracked bedroom door. The kitchen light flicked on, stayed for a few minutes, then switched off. I heard slow footsteps across the creaky floorboards. Then silence. The next morning, we confronted Luke. He brushed it off with a smile. "Old houses, you know. I like to check in to make sure nothing's leaking." His tone was casual, but his eyes lingered on us in a way that made my skin crawl. On the third night, it got terrifying. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of our bedroom doorknob rattling. My girlfriend grabbed my arm. Then, the door opened just an inch. Luke's voice whispered through the crack, "Everything all right in here?" That was it. We shouted for him to leave and called the rental platform immediately. The representative told us to get somewhere safe, so we packed our bags and drove to a nearby motel. The whole time, I kept imagining him standing outside, watching us. The next day, we went back with local police to grab the rest of our things. Luke was there, acting completely normal, sipping coffee on the porch. He even waved. Inside, the officer found a binder with house rules. One line chilled me: "Owner reserves the right to enter at discretion." It wasn't in the online listing. The platform eventually banned him, but the damage was already done. For weeks afterward, my girlfriend had nightmares about waking up to someone in the room. It's one thing to deal with strange noises or creaky pipes. But when the person who's supposed to give you safety and privacy is the one crossing every boundary, it feels less like a vacation and more like being trapped. I travel for work a lot, and usually I don't mind the cheaper rentals. For a short trip to Seattle, I booked a minimalist basement studio. It looked clean in the photos: modern furniture, exposed brick, nothing fancy. But when I got there, I noticed something strange right away. behind the couch was a small wooden door, barely 4 feet tall. The listing hadn't mentioned it. The host casually explained it was just a crawlspace. The first night was uneventful, though I couldn't stop glancing at that door. It had no lock, just an old metal latch. Before bed, I made sure it was shut tight. The second night, after coming back from dinner, I saw it slightly ajar. Maybe I'd left it like that, I told myself. But when I pushed it closed, there was a faint draft, like air coming from inside. Around 3:14 a.m., I woke to a scraping sound. Not outside. Not upstairs. From the crawlspace. I held my breath, listening. It was rhythmic, like nails dragging slowly against wood. My chest tightened. The next morning, I inspected the area. On the floor, right in front of the crawlspace, were faint smudges of dirt. Almost like footprints. But they were small, barefoot. I moved the couch in front of the door before leaving for work. That night, determined not to let my imagination get the better of me, I set up my phone to record while I slept. I placed it facing the crawlspace, hit record, and went to bed. At 3 a.m., I woke again, this time to a muffled click. The sound of the latch being lifted. My heart pounded. The couch shifted slightly, as if something was pushing from the other side. I stayed frozen, barely daring to breathe. After a few agonizing minutes, the sound stopped. In the morning, I checked the footage. My phone battery had died halfway, but before it cut out, I caught something, the crawlspace door handle turning. Not once, but twice. That was enough. I left early, booked a last-minute hotel, and told the host I had to cut my trip short. On the way out, my phone buzzed. A text from the host: "Sorry if you heard noises. The maintenance guy sometimes checks the crawlspace at night." I never responded. Even now, I can't shake the thought of lying there, inches from that thin wooden door, while someone or something was on the other side, trying to get out. Back in 2019, I booked a rustic guesthouse in Charleston for a long weekend. It looked charming, exposed beams, old furniture, the kind of place that felt like stepping back in time. The bedroom had this massive antique mirror, framed in carved wood, standing directly across from the bed. It gave the room a certain elegance, but the moment I walked in, something about it felt wrong. The first night, I caught myself staring at my reflection too often. Sometimes it looked normal. Other times, it felt just a little off, like the reflection lagged, or like the shadows didn't match perfectly. I told myself it was my imagination, or maybe just the warped glass of an old mirror. The second night, I noticed something unsettling. When I leaned closer, there were faint smudges on the surface, fingerprints, but on the inside of the glass. That's impossible, I thought. Still, it bothered me enough that I couldn't fall asleep easily. Around 2 a.m., I woke up thirsty and went to grab water. That's when I saw it, the faintest flicker of light, coming from behind the mirror. Like someone's flashlight beam leaking through a crack. My stomach dropped. The next morning, I decided to check. Carefully, I pulled the heavy frame away from the wall. My hands started shaking when I saw what was behind it, a hole in the drywall, perfectly cut out, about the size of a fist. On the other side was thin black fabric stretched across, disguising it. When I held my phone flashlight up, I realized it lined up perfectly with the bed. It wasn't just a hole. It was a peephole. I pushed the mirror back and tried to act normal, but I couldn't stay there another night. I called the rental company and demanded to leave. The host didn't even sound surprised, just annoyed, saying things like, "That mirror's been there forever." Later, when I checked my phone's video recordings, I sometimes set it to capture while I sleep. I saw something I'll never forget. Around 1:30 a.m., the faint glow behind the mirror flickered again, like someone moving a light on the other side. And for a few seconds, the black fabric shifted. Something or someone was there. Watching. I left that house shaking, and I've never stayed in a place with an uncovered mirror facing the bed since. Because now I know, sometimes, you're not looking at your reflection. You're looking at someone else's view. Rentals are supposed to feel like home, but these stories prove that behind locked doors, mirrors, and even smiling hosts, safety can be an illusion. Whether it's hidden cameras, strangers in crawlspaces, or footsteps outside your room at night, you never really know who else has the key. These 5 true Airbnb horror stories remind us that sometimes the scariest part of traveling isn't the city you're in, it's the place you're sleeping. If you want more chills, stay tuned for our next video, True Road Trip Horror Stories that will make you think twice before your next drive.